Welcome to Part 2 of the Zero Deposit Loan software training. In Part 1, we demonstrated how to provide a quote and invite the patient to apply. In this video, we'll show you what the patient needs to complete in an application. If your patient can't access our software, please check to see if they are using one of these recommended browsers and that they are using the latest version. If your patient needs to contact MyFund, the number to call is 1300 700 318. The patient will receive an email from the dental practice with an invitation to apply for a zero deposit loan. The link in the email will take the patient to this screen. All inputting from here will normally be done by the patient. It's a simple process and will take about 15 minutes to complete. This page explains the details of the process, including how to apply, before you start what details will be required, and our cooling off period. The More Details tab in the bottom left-hand corner will give you what the patient will need to supply to us when an approval is received. When they are ready to commence the application, they simply click the Apply Now button in the right-hand bottom corner. The patient details you have entered in the invitation stage will be pre-populated in our system. The patient will need to complete their preferred method of contact and when it is convenient to contact them if necessary. When they are ready, simply click the Begin tab. This screen confirms to the patient that an email has been sent to their nominated email address with the link to their application. It also gives details on how they can exit their application and return to it without losing any data previously entered. It also gives them an understanding of the questions asked during the application process. Please note, our system saves the data entered continually. There is no Save button. If the patient can't complete the application in one sitting, the system will automatically save the information completed and allow the patient to continue with the application when they next access it. They will access it through the link attached to the original email invitation sent. The treatment plan document can be viewed by the patient on this screen. It confirms the amounts being financed for a zero deposit loan and any deposit the patient may wish to contribute. The patient will need to answer these 4 questions honestly and to the best of their knowledge. The patient also needs to confirm that they have read the privacy consent, and they can do that by clicking on the privacy consent link and then answering yes. Click the Continue tab at the bottom right-hand corner to proceed when this is done. The patient needs to consent to receive all notices and documents electronically. They provide the consent by typing yes in this box. The consent can be withdrawn by the patient at any time. The details entered by both the practice and the patient will automatically populate into the application system. You will notice the 6 tabs across the top of the screen, which will either be in green or red, or partially green and red. Red means that there is input required. Both green and red means that part of the information has been completed, but it requires more input. And green means all the details required have already been entered and it's ready to submit. All 6 tabs at the top need to be green to be able to submit the application. In the personal details section, we require the full legal name, the gender, the date of birth, and the relationship status. If details need to be amended, click on the relevant box and correct the details. In the identification details, the patient needs to provide either a driver's license or passport detail. You can do that by selecting from this drop-down box. We've selected the driver's license, so we then need to complete the driver's license number and the state the driver's license was issued. In contact details, we will already have the patient's preferred method of contact and email address. They can change these details at this stage. When you click on the residential address, you'll see this window. Complete the mandatory fields and also complete the time living at that address. The status box requires the patient to disclose whether they own the home they live in, whether they own the home with a mortgage, whether they rent there, or board or live with their parents. We'll select Rent. If they rent the premises, they will need to complete the amount of rent they pay, the frequency with which they pay, and then provide a real estate agent's name and contact number. Once this is complete, they can simply click Tab or this close box. If the postal address is different from the residential address, click on this box and complete the same process to enter the postal address. The patient will then need to complete their employment and income details. To start, click on this box. On this window, simply follow the drop-down boxes from top to bottom. The patient will need to provide the employer's name and address details. They'll then need to complete the number of hours of work they do per week, the frequency with which they are paid, and then their income details. They then provide the net pay amount, the next pay date, a contact at their employer, time in their role, and whether they are on probation or not. If they have been in the role for less than 2 years, the system will ask for previous employment details, where they will complete a similar window. After completing the employment details, the patient will then be asked about any other income, and that could be from rental properties, shares, interest, or any other source. If the patient owns a rental property, for example, click on this box, select from the drop-down box Rental Property, and then complete the property details on this window. If they earned income from shares, for example, they would click on Shares from the drop-down box, complete the market value, income amount, and income frequency. In this example, let's assume the patient doesn't own shares or an investment property. If the patient earns interest income, they can click on this box and complete the bank details that the interest is earned in. And if there is any other income, clicking on this box will allow the patient to disclose the source, the payment frequency, and the amount of income they earn from that source. The system will automatically calculate the total amount of income earned from employment and any other sources that the patient discloses. In the expenses section, the patient will be asked about their living expenses and credit card debts and some personal loans that are unsecured. Any secured loans, such as mortgages or car leases, would be included under the assets section below. In this expenses section, the patient will be required to complete typical expenses incurred. They click on the first box, complete this window, and click Next. If the expense type is not one that the patient uses, they can select another expense from this large drop-down box. The House of Residence expenses will automatically be pre-populated from previous input. The patient would then complete any other investment or property loan expenses. The patient would complete any personal loan expenses and credit card debts. Let's assume this patient has a credit card. The patient would then complete any car loans. The patient would then complete any other debts or loans that they have. And again, the system will calculate the total amount of expenses weekly, monthly, and annually for this particular applicant. In the Assets section, the patient will input the value and some details of each asset. As this applicant is renting, they will go straight to the Furniture and Household Goods section and input a value. They will then complete the assets in any bank accounts. That could include savings and cheque accounts, as well as any term deposits. They will then input any details about motor vehicles they own and their value. The Liabilities section refers to any debts, encumbrances, or loans that an applicant might have. In this section, under House of Residence, if the applicant has a mortgage or home loan, they would enter that here. If the applicant has loans against any investments, be they property, shares, or anything else, they would enter that in this section here. And any personal loans, unsecured loans or secured, would be entered in this section. The credit card entered earlier has been pre-populated in this section under credit cards. We entered a car as an asset in the previous section. If there was a loan outstanding on that vehicle, we would add that here. Tax, HECS and help debts that the patient may have would be entered in this section here. If the patient had a tax debt, they would enter the amount they owed, the payments they make and the frequency. In this case, our applicant doesn't have a tax debt, so we'll remove it. Finally, the next of kin details requires the applicant to nominate a next of kin for this loan. Once all tabs along the top numbered 1 to 6 are green, all details required are ready to submit. Once the applicant clicks Submit, they will progress to this screen which says, "How did you go?" There's not much further to go in the application process.